Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another race guide for Blood Bowl 3. Today I get to proudly announce we have got Undead as the race in Season 3 Spotlight. Instead of previous videos where we've talked about this over a static screen, I've decided to go and fetch you and show you the actual models that are inside the game. And so up just above my head, we've got the two mummies. These are the absolute stars of the show, and one of the reasons why people absolutely want to play Undead. In the middle centre, we've got the two whites. They're the guys with the spiky horns. They are the workhorses of the team, or the enforcers, sorry, should I say. They're just off to the right. In a group of four, we've got the ghouls. They are a fragile little unit, but very speedy. And then at the front, I've put three zombies, because they are the meat shields, if you were. Undead, probably one of the strongest teams in the game. I would say that they are very beginner friendly and ultimately just a great all-round team up until about high team value where they start to fall off a little bit. They do have some weaknesses though. They are expensive reroll wise. You won't expect to be passing with them. And the little block of four ghouls that are in the top right-hand corner, they are fragile and very bendy when they get wet. So be careful with the ghouls. That said, let's dive in and have a quick look at some roster composition. Okay, so into roster building. As usual, I've got three rosters for you. They're all built around something very similar, but they do all have differences and they will all play differently, even from the beginning. So, roster build number one. Roster build one is built around the premise that we want to have 3 rerolls because we've got very minimal ball handling. We've gone 2 mummies straight out the gate, which are the core of the team. You'll find that in every single build. If you don't put both mummies in immediately, frankly, I think you're doing something wrong. We want to take both whites, same reason. They're absolutely critical. And so therefore we're flexing around how many ghouls are we taking and how many rerolls. So in this particular build, I've got two ghouls and then zombies down to 11 with 3 rerolls. You'll notice we've got 10k left, so we absolutely would go and buy another dedicated fan here. So go to recruitment and just spend that on your dedicated fans. And that will help us generate extra money for the remaining 2 ghouls. I think overall, probably within 2 games, you'll pick up your 3rd ghoul. And then 2 more games, you should pick up your 4th ghoul. And then this team's done. If you're playing it on the ladder, maybe you stop at 3 ghouls. But I think 4 ghouls, generally speaking, is the way forward. And overall, you're playing with a team of either 12 or 13. So that's your first roster. Let's go and look at the next one. So roster number 2 has gone the opposite direction. We've still got 11 players, but I've gone for all 4 ghouls, and that has meant we've actually costed out a reroll. This roster is going to feel a lot faster to play. It's going to feel a lot more aggressive. You've got 4 players with dodge, which, all right, they're Agi 3. You can move them around a little bit. They're going to do stuff. And if one dies, you're not immediately hamstrung and thinking, how on earth are you going to play out? It is going to be a slightly more variance-based roster. If the mummies are unfortunate and roll skull both down, or you're rolling some double skulls here or there, the first couple of games are going to feel a little bit ropier. But I think probably a slightly more experienced coach should get more out of this roster. They'll know when to throw dice, when not to. And I think my ladder start is probably this build. This will be where I'll start and see what happens. Because I'll probably play off 2 rerolls all the way through. Once you've got a couple of blocks on the ghouls, a sure hands, and some guard across the top, this roster will play fine. There is, however, a 3rd roster, and this roster is a kind of hybrid across the 2. I've gone for 3 ghouls, 2 rerolls, 12 players. The idea here is that the zombies are incredibly fragile, effectively. You know, they're only armor 9+, they've got no defensive skills, no block, no dodge. They're just going to get punched. When they stand up, they get punched again. You're going to lose players. So therefore, why don't we start the game with a bench, and we'll play with 2 rerolls and 3 ghouls. This is the other roster I think I would play if I was playing on ladder. Very effective, and I think you'll get a lot out of this. And I think if you're a newer player, this would probably be the roster pick that I would actually recommend. So this is Davo's top tip roster for newer players, which is to take the 12 players, just drop a ghoul, play off 2 rerolls. If you're not going to do this as a new player, then the other roster I would pick is roster 1, where you get the 3 rerolls, you get the reliability, and then you just add ghouls straight away. Because all you need to do now is save up a 75k, buy a ghoul. You've got 12 players. You've got the 3 rerolls. This is ready to go. They're the all effective rosters. There's not a great deal of variance in an Undead roster, I'm afraid. Links onto that, once you've built your roster, we'll then go into how to level a team. There are effectively 4 different player types. We'll just quickly pick up a skeleton and just show you the difference between skeleton and zombie. So far, I've only exclusively talked about one of the player types, which is the zombie. So at the top, we've got mummies. Mummies have they have strength access by default, although for some reason it's not showing here, but they do have strength access by default, and then they can also get general skills, which is the other skill tree you even care about, as a secondary skill. Ultimately, when you're leveling both mummies, there is a simple choice you're going to make. Are you going to take guard at 6-star player points, or are you saving to 12-star player points for block? Whichever one you pick, you're picking the other one next time. Guard and block and guard are the two absolute core skills on a mummy. And once you've got them both, I think they're great. If you're a newer coach, I think you probably should take guard first, because you'll get a power boost out of them immediately, much quicker. It's only 3 casualties. If you can prolong it, maybe you save guard on one and block on the other. Once you've got those 2 skills, you take stand firm, and then you pray you don't level any further. If you do, at that point, you've possibly got a little bit more of it. It's something you can do. It's interesting. You could take dodge. You could take defensive. Once you've got those 3 core skills, but we are talking probably at 1600 TV plus. Those skills are high TV skills, but ultimately, if you're playing where skill matters more, you want guard, block, and maybe stand firm. Dodge and defensive, or defensive first, actually, probably even above dodge, are the 2 skill picks after that. Right, next one are the blitzers, the white blitzers. These two, oh, there we go, it did load this time. The white blitzers both also get strength access, so they are also a natural caddy for guard. But because they're blitzers and they share the role with blitzing with the ghouls, we need to be thinking about how we're going to level them. Because they've got strength access, you're probably going to go guard, mighty blow, and tackle on one. And if you go that route, then you could also do something interesting, which you could take Frenzy, you can take Juggernaut, you could take Stand Firm. Those skills are all quite interesting. And that builds you a utility blitzer that can run around and hit stuff. At the beginning, I'd split that out and then say, right, the first one that levels takes Mighty Blow, the second one that levels takes Guard. Once you've got Mighty Blow, you then take Tackle. You've now got a Tackle Mighty Blow that can run around and deal with Skaven, you can deal with elves. That's one side. The other one just takes Guard. Once you've got Guard, then you take Mighty Blow. So you end up with both players that can, both whites that can actually do a bit of punching. You've got 4 Mighty Blow on the team at that point, but you've also got a Tackle Mighty Blow and a Guard. At the Tackle Mighty Blow, once you get your 3rd level, that's where it gets a little more, you need to start specializing. Are you going down the route of Killer, in which case you're going to go things like Frenzy and Juggernaut, or are you going to then reel it back in a little bit and just play, well, I need as much Guard as possible, so you go Mighty Blow, Tackle, Guard, Stand Firm. Where do you want to go with that? And it's about how you're going to play the team. Are you trying to cause as much damage as possible, or are you going to try and build more of a control team? Ultimately, I think you must take Mighty Blow and Guard on both whites, and you probably want to take Tackle on both whites at some point in that skill tree. Next, the ghouls. Now we get 4 of these, so actually you do get to split them out. And I think I've already listed here 3 different types of ghoul. I think there's probably a 4th. The first one is the Ball Carrier, and in a ladder environment at the moment where you can play as many games as you like, then saving up for characteristic increases to make it movement 8 and then movement 9. Very, very strong. You want to take block and you want to take sure hands. In some order, you want those skills. How you get there, that's up to you. If you're a newer player, you probably want to take block and sure hands first and then save for the movement increases afterwards. If you're a more experienced player, then you'll get more out of probably taking movement increase, movement 8, possibly even going straight to movement 9, or move 8, sure hands, movement 9, block. It's up to you. Bearing in mind these things don't have regeneration, so if they get casualtied, whatever the casualty is that sticks, adding some defensive layering like adding block in there, probably not a bad idea. Next is the star of the show, and moving into the 2020 rule set, we've got a Sneaky Git Dirty Player. Because ghouls can get general skill and agility skill access on a primary, then you could pick up Sneaky Git and Dirty Player, and it's got easy access to picking the ball up because it's Edge 3 and Movement 7. This is your damage engine on the team now. You want to take Dirty Player and you want to take Sneaky Git. For me, I think the correct way around to do that is to take Sneaky Git first and then to take Dirty Player second. If, however, you're playing up team value an awful lot of the time, then you probably want to take Dirty Player first because you can protect that with a bribe, and then you go Sneaky Git second. It's kind of up to you which way around you play it. But if it's in a ladder format, then I think Sneaky Git first. There are two other types, although I've only listed here one. The first is the ball hawk, and that type of player is someone that you're going to choose to send after the ball wherever possible, or you're going to take a 1-dice sack on the ball. And this is playstyle dependent. If you're playing a control game where you don't need to dive in on the ball, then this type of player has a lower priority about being built. But if you're someone who likes playing a really aggressive, fun type of Blood Bowl, let's say, then a ball hawk is something you could build. For me, that is wrestle, tackle, strip ball. I also think you'd get an awful lot of value out of taking sidestep and diving tackle as secondary skills, but wrestle tackle or wrestle tackle strip are the first 3 skills. This type of player doesn't tend to live very long, so dreaming of 5 skills on a player like this is probably a fool's mission. But wrestle tackle strip in some order. And wrestle is your first skill, and then you're taking tackle or strip depending on what situation you think you're going to find yourself in. The other type of ghoul that you can build is a utility ghoul, which people often overlook, but has a lot of value, and that is block, and then go into the agility skill tree and take sidestep, and then dive and tackle. And if you had 2 of those, suddenly that's quite a lot of the field you can lock down with that type of player. And you can stick tackle on it, which means the whites don't necessarily both need to take tackle now, so you can build one into a killer and one into a bit more of a roadblock. And it gives you some flexibility on your building. But I do think blodge sidestep and then possibly diving tackle is quite a lot of fun. I'm not sure about defensive. At higher team value, I think I would probably put a ghoul with defensive, but it'd have to have blodge, and it probably needs to have sidestep. And you'd also want to mix that in with a lot of your own guard. There's nothing else in here that I think's fun. I wouldn't build a ball carrying thrower on a ladder environment where all these skills are 40 team value each. This is absolutely bonkers. The only skill in here that I possibly consider for 40 TV is leader, because if we look at how expensive the rerolls are, I'm going to customize recruitment. Rerolls are 70 and leader is 40. So maybe you pick up a leader on a ghoul to try and save rerolls. If you're playing off a 2 reroll build, you'd probably go 2 rerolls and leader to save yourself that 30 team value to let you spend it elsewhere. But overall, the ball hawk is not a player type I go for. I like 2 blodge sidesteps, a ball carrier, and then I take the Sneaky Git dirty player. That would be how I would build all 4 ghouls. And then the final player type is these zombies or skeletons. You can have up to 16 of either, and they are your linemen. They are the filler. And you could take two of each. You can take 4 of each. You can take as many as you like. I personally think that I would only ever take the zombies. I don't think the skeletons add any value whatsoever. And if we look at it, you can kind of see why. So what are you trading out? Well, zombies are a bit slower at movement 4 versus a skeleton movement 5. They're the same strength. They're the same agility. One's got passing access, one hasn't. Don't ask me why. And what you're actually trading there for is a point of movement for a point of armor. So skeletons have their armor broken on an 8+, but they're faster, whereas zombies have their armor broken on 9+ and are slower. Skeletons do also have thick skull, so you can argue that AV 8+ with thick skull is the same equivalent as armor 9+, and therefore you get a free point of movement, so therefore you should take skeletons. And if you came to that conclusion, you were wrong. Skeletons are crap, because the point of skeletons is that they stand up and they take a punch, and then they stand up next turn and they take a punch. If they spend every other turn being stunned, because Thick Skull has saved them, then they're not doing their primary job, which is shielding your important players, all these ones up here, from doing the actual work of the team. Occasionally someone will argue that having a Fowler which has got movement 5 is quite nice. I would say learn to position better. But that's just me. I don't think a skeleton has any place on an undead team at all. I think they're too easy to remove, and they don't add enough value. Just take zombies. So there you go. There's my thoughts. Just take zombies. From a leveling perspective, what we're looking for are 2 utility zombies, probably a kick, possibly a dirty player if you're not going to go down the Sneaky Git dirty player ghoul route. It's okay to run a second dirty player anyway, and when they level, block or wrestle. If they stand on the line, on high team value, you take wrestle, because then those players fall over with you, and you're happy with that. You haven't taken a punch. At lower team value, you get more value out of block, and not everyone has block, so having a block zombie is quite nice. As you rise team value, swap those over to wrestle, and probably make sure you've got a kick player. if you're going to field all 4 ghouls on defense, and we'll look at the setups in a second, then you'll find that kick has less value on a zombie, and you might end up moving kick bizarrely across to one of your ghouls. Right, let's go and look at setups actually. So offensive setup. First of all, I'm playing with 4 ghouls, and you'll look, if I mouse over them, you can see the red dot moving around, and it's these 4 players here that are doing the ghoul work. If you're playing into a team where you're worried about getting a perfect defense, then that's the setup you should move into. If you're playing against elves, then potentially you're going to be slightly further forward. So some variation of this, where you've got chevrons on both sides, the ghouls at the back, and then we've got mummy, mummy, white, white, and then a random zombie. So the zombies are here, here, and here. And that should give you a reasonable setup against anti-blitz. If you're playing into elves, then this is actually a stronger setup, because your opponent, if you blitz away the number 10 square, they can't run through here very easily. They're only going to get through these squares. If you're playing into orcs, where you're not worried about them dodging, then you're going to use this side rather than this side. So that's your offensive setup. That's assuming we're going to have players in front of the 2, the 3, and the 4, and we're going to block diagonally to maximize our hits. On defense, defense is all about what type of turn you're playing into. So here is a cluster, which is just trying to minimize incoming damage on your important players. If we mouse over the ghouls, we'll see where they are. We're playing with 4 ghouls in this particular setup, and this is one of the setups you could go with. So we're hiding all 4 ghouls. We got the mummies actually tucked in here, so they're not foulable. And then we got the whites on the outside. Of those 2 whites, number 4 white is the most expensive one. Number 3 white is the slightly more rookie of the 2. And then we got the 4 ghouls here. Ideally, about the idea of this setup is all we're trying to do in the first turn is not give away easy hits and easy fouls for our opponent to exploit. It's not a very particularly good positional setup. It doesn't allow you to go and exploit a blitz. It's just trying to stop you getting hurt. This is the sort of setup you might choose against a stronger, bashier team. If we're trying to stop a 1-turn or a 2-turn offense, then we're therefore going to probably deploy the chevrons. So we now move to a center deployed middle, and then I've put the ghouls. If we look at where the ghouls are, you'll see that they're the 4 across the back there. Number 5 and number 8 would be the ghouls that you would use that have probably got the least value. And ideally, if you've managed to get to block, blodge, or blodge sidestep, 5 and 8 fulfill that role. If it's an actual 2-turn and you're playing into elves, take this entire setup and just walk it back, probably to about this sort of distance here, on both sides and also in the middle, because your opponent is going to try and actually stand in these squares so that they can get into scoring range. So if you take this back, and again I take this back, this is a proper anti 2-turn. Don't go too far back. You want to count how many squares forward they need to be stood in, and you want to be stood. The 8 player needs to be stood where they want to stand. So you're standing in their way, literally standing in their way. So that's chevrons. And then there is also the setup that I'm probably more likely to use pretty much more of the time, and that is the center hold formation, where we've gone for chevrons, and actually they're inverted chevrons. So they're going this way. Again, the 4 ghouls are the 4 at the back. The 7 and 8 ghouls are probably the most valuable. And what we're assuming here is that the zombies will at least just fill in squares, which will mean that it's difficult for the opponent to get into these squares here to throw a 2 dice blitz on this guy or a 2 dice blitz on this guy. That's where we're using the mummies in the middle. So if they do want to come and stand something here, they're trading and getting punched in the face with a mummy. More than likely, they'll be blitzing a white on either corner. This setup gives you the ability to push round and push into your opponent on both sides. And this is probably my setup that I'll be using in ladder a lot. Unless, of course, we're playing into orcs, in which case you'll see me do some variant of this blob. It's like a hive of bees. This will be the setup. So I'll be using that, and then trying to defend with the chevrons if we're playing into a short drive. Or if I want to play super aggressively, we'll pull this really far forward and we'll play an aggressive drive where I'm just effectively trying to attack down both flanks. So there we go. That's setups. Now we're going to move into looking at inducements. Right, okay, so let's look at inducements. We've managed to make it all the way through to the game screen, and suddenly your first match is something where the opponent's got a load of skills. We can use the inducements money to absolutely level this up. Undead do make quite good use of inducements, and they have a selection of pretty tasty stuff at their disposal, even in the slightly limited variant that is Blood Bowl 3. So, first of all, if you've got less than 100k, well, sorry, you've got 100k, then a bribe. You're going to be hopefully running a Sneaky Git Dirty Player. You're certainly running a Sneaky Git. Sneaky Git and bribes combo really well. A bribe, it should be your first go-to. Have I got 100k or there or thereabouts? Therefore, can I take a bribe? That would be my first thing. If you've got 50k, we'll take a keg. 100 to 150, we take a bribe. They are the first two things that I would look at. Once you get to 150k and you've got the wizard breakpoint, you should now be thinking about whether or not you've got a Sneaky Git Dirty Player or not. If you don't have Sneaky Git or Dirty Player, a wizard probably at 150k is great value. If you do, then I think probably still the bribe is still probably favourite, unless your opponent is incredibly strong and you're not going to be able to knock stuff over, and therefore the threat of a wizard and a fireball is probably what you want to be looking at. So wizard is situational use, bribe is probably very heavy situational use. If you're leaning into someone that's going to foul you a lot, then the Brias referee is very effective. It will stop them fouling you or deter them, hopefully, and take that. Undead have one of the most badly costed star players in Blood Bowl 2020, and fortunately it's made its way into Blood Bowl 3, and that is this beast of a player here, Ivan the Animal Death Shroud. He's got block, tackle, strip ball, and that is a reworked Juggernaut symbol. So, and he's also, if we look at his player card, he's movement 6, so he's the same as a white. However, he's a strength 4 white. He's got edge 4, passing an AV9+. He's a strength 4 block, tackle, strip ball Juggernaut player for 190k. That's insane. That's actually insane. He's probably costed as though he was a player that you had just leveled. So whenever you can take Ivan, you should take Ivan. So it goes babes, bribes, maybe a wizard, definitely an Ivan, in that order there. There isn't anything else that you want to be taking. If we look at the other 2-star players, you've got access to Helmut Wolf, rubbish, and another chainsaw, rubbish. Do not take these 2 players. Take Ivan. You should be taking bribes if you can afford only this, and if you can afford this, you should take Ivan. I am hopeful that they will put the rest of the Undead style players in. There's about 10 to pick from. At the moment, we've only got access to 3, which is a real shame. But I do hope that over the Season 4, Season 5, we'll see more of the star players come through. And hopefully we'll also get the star player special rules. Ivan's special rules fairly balanced. It's effectively crushing blow unless you're a dwarf, in which case it's mighty blow 2 once per game. So I'd like to see that included in the game. I'd also like to see them Games Workshop reballon Ivan a little bit. He's far too cheap. He should be at least 240, at least, for the type of player that you've got there. So that's your inducements phase, all rounded out. 2 final things from me. Number 1, I hope you've enjoyed the guide video. If you have, and you want to come and say hello, I stream on Twitch every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday evening from 7 p.m. I also stream on a weekend, so from about 5 p.m. UK time. And I will also be doing an Undead run where we play probably 20 to 30 games very early on in the season. So the date today is the 11th of December 2023. I'll be playing a run which will go on YouTube as a how to play Undead guide video, walking you through taking initial team creation all the way through to like game 20 or so, and trying to explain what I'm doing and why all the way through. So if you enjoy that, yeah, come and say hello on Twitch. Till next time, thank you very much indeed for watching. I've been Andy Debo, and this has been my Undead guide video for Blood Bowl 3.